Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adventures with Andi. So what have we been doing the past couple of days, Chad?
Well, we watched some TV, and we went to the store. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's all I remember.
Anything to do with the masso mess in front of us?
Oh, I blocked that out.
Yeah, we've been dyeing a lot of yarn the past couple of days. We had planned to only dye a couple of projects today, but then we have a whole lot of dye left over, and we cannot let it go to waste. So I had Chad run and grab a couple of skeins of the yarn that I got from the Knit Picks November sale for overdyeing with. And I thought, let's put some dye on there, overdye these colors, and see what we get. And the two that he chose, which pick, Chad?
This one and this one.
Oh my God. Read the tag.
Alpaca Cloud Fingering Weight Mosley at 200 yards.
In 50 grams.
Okay. And Alpaca Cloud Fingering Weight Jane at 200 yards, 50 grams.
Yes. And the color on this one is FYT. And the color on this one is XO. I don't know what that means, but this one's a light brown. This one's a medium brown.
Those were my determining factors. To be honest.
Determining factor. Light brown, medium brown. Okay. I told him, just go grab a couple of brown skeins of yarn. So,
mission accomplished.
You did a perfect job. Oh, you're excellent. You might have noticed this aluminum tray in front of us. We're going to take these two skeins and we are just going to lay them in this aluminum tray and put just a low level of water in here and pour the various leftover dyes over it as we complete projects. And it's just going to sit there and soak like that over the next probably at least a couple of days based on one of the projects and how long it's going to take. And then when we're done with that, we will toss it in the crock pot and heat set it and take a look and see what we got.
Yeah.
So that is the loose, came up with 5 minutes ago plan that we have for this. The first thing I need to do is get some extra figure 8 ties in these and toss it in some water with some vinegar, let it soak in there for a little bit while we finish getting prepped. So come on in, we'll get to work. And now this yarn is 100% superfine alpaca and it is not super wash. So I'm not going to be doing this over heat to start with. It's going to be a more cold vat process, largely because my crock pot is currently already involved in dyeing some yarn. But even when I do go to heat it, I need to be really careful not to agitate it too much because we don't want to felt it. And I also notice just as I'm putting these ties in, you can see it's not the kind of loose and falls apart easy sort of skein of yarn that we see with a lot of wool yarn, especially super fine wool. Even though this is it looks like a 2-ply twist. And it's the nature of the yarn that it's gonna want to catch to itself already. So it might look like it's a little felted here. It's not. This is straight out of the skein, just as it came. And it pulls apart nice and easy. It kind of sticks to itself a little bit. You've seen me mention that in other videos after I've dyed yarn, especially non-superwash yarn. I say it's not felted, it's just a little sticky. It just sticks to itself. You see what I'm talking about there? And it's just the loose hairs in there just grabbing a hold of each other. And I did put color-coded silicone zip ties on here. Orange on the lighter brown and blue on the darker brown. So that if they end up pretty close to the same shade, we know which one is which. This is all fluffed out. Looking good. And now I'm just going to soak it in some room temperature water with vinegar in it. And I just put, this is just water that's been out here soaking other yarn in it. but didn't have any vinegar in it before. And I just put about a half a cup of vinegar in there. And I'm just gonna soak this for maybe 10, 20 minutes tops, just until the yarn is saturated. The yarn's been soaking about 15 minutes. And I'm just gonna lay it in here, spread it out. There's some patches that still look dry, but that's okay. I'm not gonna fret about it too much, because we're gonna be putting some water in here anyway. And I'm not really squeezing the water out too much. And you know, I'm not sure if I've dyed alpaca before.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, but that's okay. I'm just going to put a little bit of this water in here just to give us a little bit of a level of water. I'm not wanting to submerge the yarn. Obviously, I don't have this on heat, so we don't have to worry about burning the yarn. No, I won't get wet. You can't get me wet, I refuse. Of course, the table's not level, so, and we're right on the middle. But that's okay. All right, put this off to the side.
Have some sticks.
Have some sticks. I'm just gonna use some craft sticks to pop this up to get a little bit more level. This is copper that we mixed up from Wilton's Colorite, and this is teal that we mixed up from Wilton's Colorite for the video where we injected the copper into a yarn cake and then poured the teal over it and let it cool that dye for a while. And as you can see, as normal, I mixed up too much dye. So we're gonna go ahead and just get syringes filled and just sort of squirt it all over the yarn.
Bonus points if you squirt it on Andi.
No!
No?
Don't you even dare.
You're gonna use all this?
I don't know, I might need another skein of yarn.
Or two?
I'm going to use this spoon and just sort of squish this around some. This is turning very pretty, I must say. All right, executive spur of the moment decision, because these are not very big skeins. I have grabbed a skein of the Knit Pick Swish Fingering, and we're going to add this in because we still have a ton of dye left there. And it'll give us a nice comparison of what yarn looks like when you're over dyeing compared to when you're... Now this skein is going to be going in wet, going to be going in dry because I don't have any more water set out for it to soak in. It's ready? Now, if you could take this spoon, Chad, and just carefully move the yarn over. Just starting from here and just move it over to the side to make room for this one.
So we can snuggle up?
That's right.
How's that?
That's good. And I'll go ahead and just put this in here. And now if you want to use that spoon and kind of just tap that down in there. As best we can. And it's just kind of soaking up that excess. Oh yeah, that's coming through all the way very nicely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we can go ahead and just put the rest of the copper and the blue on this one.
Ooh.
You didn't notice I did
I didn't see the swirl before.
swirled circles last time?
No.
Yeah, I'm going all the way across, aren't I?
Yes, you are.
Pour the rest of this copper over here on this one. We're all done with the copper.
Probably do the same with the teal now. Okay.
Okay, you want to go, actually we've still got a little bit of water in here, so we can,
Rejuvenate that.
yes. And just pour the rest of this water over our bonus skein.
A little bit more water in there.
Sure. This will also give us some vinegar for that swish skein. Just surprises everywhere. I'm just making it up as I go along.
Mm-hmm.
Some pretty colors together though.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just gonna hang out while we work on the rest of our dye projects that we're doing. And as we get to where we have any other leftover dye, if we do, then we'll go ahead and pour it over top of these. We'll probably end up flipping at some point. I'm sure there's some bare spots left in the swish because that's a large skein of yarn, but we'll see. Much to my surprise, we didn't have any other leftover dyes from any of the other projects that I was working on when I started this. But there's not as much color on these as I wanted, especially on the ones that were overdying. So I went rummaging around in the chest freezer, which is where I keep my leftover dyes if I'm not using them the same day, because I just freeze them, and pulled out some that have been in there for, at least in one case, over a year. I've got this bag of blues and greens, this that I am not sure what it used to be, but it looks kind of brown now. And I have these, which at one point is where I had poured some leftover dye into this paw print silicone mold and put it in the freezer. Now you may remember when we used these for some solar dyeing like over a year ago, and I didn't use all of them. Well, this is what's left, and they have evaporated and dried out, and we're gonna see if we want to use these or not. Depends on what we think of their structural integrity. They're very strange looking right now. But to start with, we're going to take the ice sheets from the Ziploc bags and just lay them on here however we want. I have this on the hot plate right now. I was a little concerned about putting just this aluminum foil pan directly on the hot plate. I didn't want it to get too hot in any one spot and potentially burn the yarn. So we took a second aluminum foil tray and wadded up some old aluminum foil that I've been saving for projects to sort of put like a buffer layer in there so that this should still get hot, hot enough to set the yarn, but it shouldn't get like hot enough to burn the yarn anywhere. Chad, you want to help me with this?
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's all over my fingers too.
Do you care where it goes?
I do not. Oh, crap. Ah. I meant to flip these. You can see we've got color all throughout, but we haven't flipped these. So let's pull these out real quick. Oh, it's stuck to the yarn. Nope, we're not pulling out, I guess.
That one's up.
That one's out. It's all over my hands.
Yeah, those two are in there.
Those are, okay, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and flip these with the ice under it then, as best I can. We've got some places where there's still no color, and that's why I wanted to add some more color in here. Sorry, I'm doing this on the fly in the evening. Oh, I'm still thinking on a story and a whole bunch of other things, and so I'm forgetting everything I'm supposed to say and do, and it's just going to be a little bit chaotic. But you know what? What did we say, Chad?
It's an adventure.
Oh my God, he's the one who started that saying, and I have to remind him. Yes, it's an adventure. Nothing else, this will clear some room out of the freezer, right?
Yep.
Oh God, there is still so much dye in these bags. I could probably soak some water in here and pour this back out again. All right, so I think we got enough in there to not worry about the paw prints. So we'll just go ahead and leave this like it is and let this all heat up and melt. And a nice thing about putting the ice in there is it's also gonna raise the water level as well. So I really hate to let this dye go to waste, especially this is just so pretty, the blue and green. So we've got this yarn mop that we've been using. So I'm just going to take it, and first I'm going to keep a hold of the zip tie, and I'm going to just put it in here and just sort of squish it around in here just to try to get up some of this color on it. This is not easy. Bag keeps sticking to itself, but we're getting some, we're getting some. And now I'm going to take it, sit there for a minute, and I'm going to put it in here. So you can make use of this dye. Yes, I know, I'm making a mess. And this is just some leftover dye bath water from when we were dyeing earlier. And I'm just gonna pour it in there with this. It's got vinegar in it. That's fine. I might add some more water in there to get some more of that dye down in there because there's still quite a bit. Oh, I hope there's not a hole in this bag. Uh-oh, it might be leaking.
You double bag it?
I'm planning on it. I'm like, conveniently, I have a second bag. It's chaos here in North Carolina right now. All right. Okay. Just gonna let that sit, and then later on, we will heat set it. Okay, it's been about an hour and our ice is mostly melted. We've got like a tiny little piece here still. Dye bath, you can see we've got some steam coming off. This is warming up. Unfortunately, I've only got the single burner hot plate, so I've had to like kind of shift the pan around to get everything heated up. Our dye bath over on this side is exhausting pretty nicely, probably because it's a super wash. Over here on this side, not so much. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more vinegar because we did add more liquid in adding that ice. So I'm going to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. I'm going to go ahead and just flip these. Just to make sure that all of the white spaces are getting plenty of access to dye bath. Oh, this is nice and pleasantly warm. Flip this one. And this one. This will also help me distribute that vinegar some. Okay, I'm going to cover this back up, let it sit for another 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm just going to turn it off and let it cool down overnight and come back out in the morning and see what we got. It is the next afternoon. It's about 2 o'clock, and the dye bath on the side that has the stroll has completely cleared. But on the side that has the alpaca, we've still got some color. It's not as dark now as it was when I came out and looked at it this morning. This morning when I came out and looked at it, on this side it was still just a really deep blue in the dye bath. So it's taken up some more just sitting for a little bit longer. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it back on the heat now and let this sit and see if we can't get this to completely exhaust and make sure that all of this color is fully set in this yarn. Our yarn has been sitting on the hot plate for about an hour and a half, 2 hours now. The water is hot. I don't know if you can see the steam coming off it, but it is. Our dye bath has mostly exhausted. We still have a hint of blue in here, but I'm going to go ahead at this point and turn the heat off and just let this sit overnight to cool with the yarn in the dye bath. We know that sometimes blue just needs that. I'm also going to take very carefully, so that I hope they don't get too much dye on my arms. I'm going to take this yarn mop that we put in these bags, and I'm going to put it in here too, because it hasn't had any heat yet. Put that in there and pour its water in, which will also give us some more acid in there. I don't expect that to really cool the water too fast, and it may pick up a little bit more of that color that's loose in the water still. I don't expect it to, because you can see it's got quite a bit of color in it already. The water down here on this end is just warm, like out of the tap warm. Down here on this end, which is directly above the hot plate itself, it's steamy hot, and I'm not going to touch that. I did move all of the yarn down to this end because it was getting harder to move the pan back and forth over the burner, and I kept having one spot that was nice and hot, and then other spots that were cold. So went ahead and did that, and we're just going to let this sit out here overnight and cool off, and then we'll check in the morning and then wash it and see what we came up with. And here's our finished yarn. All right, we're going to need to take these one at a time. So let's start first with this one. This is the little mini skein that we used to, that we put in the Ziploc bag after we had gotten all the ice out, and filled it up with some vinegar water and let it just soak all that up, and we get a really interesting colorway here. We've got some really bright greens, and we've got some browns, but we've also got some reds in here too. This is our skein of superwash wool, which of course is going to grab the colors a lot faster. And we got a lot of different variation in here. Lots of different greens, going from like olive and deep forest greens to lighter like Kelly greens. We got some blues, some browns, a couple of spots of pink in here. But we got a lot of variation in this one, and even some places where it's just really light, almost no color at all on it. And then here, the ones that I find most interesting are our alpaca skeins. And this one was our lighter skein, and this one was our darker brown skein. If you remember, this was just a really light brown. And this was more of a medium brown. And we've got some really pastel greens, a little bit of sort of a yellowish brown, and some pinks in here, but it really did not take up color as deep and saturated as our superwash did. This was our darker brown, this one that was sort of a medium brown, and just the same, it didn't take up color as deeply as the superwash did, but we got some darker greens, kind of olive, tan brown, and we've still got some of the reds in here, but everything is a little bit darker than it is on our lighter skein. Now, two things about that is this one's darker because the base it started with was darker. The other thing is I learned after dyeing these that alpaca takes longer to take up dye than wool does, than merino does. So if I had let these sit without that superwash merino in there and given it plenty of time, hours, overnight even, we might have gotten some even deeper colors than what we did. But I do think it's interesting. I don't have extra skeins of these two yarns, but I do have some skeins of similar colors. They're the same colors as what we started with, just in different weights. This one is Alpaca Cloud DK Moseley, and this was the Moseley here. And then this one is the lace weight.
Is it Jane or something?
It could be Jane. I keep forgetting what this one is. But these are the same colors that we started with, just in different weights of yarn. But they were the same shades, so that you can see what we ended up with compared on what we started with. And there's not a lot of difference between the two base colors, but it really made a difference in what we ended up with. And I found it really cool and interesting. But it does show you that when you're over dyeing, you're not limited to just the same shade as what you're starting with. You know, the depth of color of what you start with can affect what you end up with. You know, okay, if we had started with, you know, a pink and had over dyed it with blue, okay, odds are we're probably going to end up with a purple. But with the browns, over dyeing the browns, that just changes the depth of the shade that we get in our color, so that we've got pastels here and we've got darker ones over here. Same dye bath, same dyes, same amount of dye. I will say I was so fascinated and interested in how this turned out that I'm really tempted to buy some more of this yarn just to try it again. So yeah, if you're wanting to get a darker color and you don't have a lot of dye to work with, or you're not wanting to risk running into a lot of bleeding, just try starting with a darker base. I'm not sure how dark brown you'd want to go. Depends on the color you're wanting, but yeah, just try starting with a brown, a medium to darker brown, and see if that gets you where you're wanting to end up. Now, normally at this point I'd be showing you the swatches of each of the skeins, but I don't have swatches this time. I made the executive decision not to work up any, because this is just a mini skein, and you know that knitting a swatch on these takes up a lot of it, about a fifth of the yarn in a mini skein. And these two skeins of the Alpaca are also small skeins. They are only, if memory serves, 50 grams as opposed to the 100 grams that we normally have in a skein. So knitting up swatches of these would also take up a lot of the skein. Obviously, our superwash here, you know, it's a full-size skein. I could work up a swatch and still have plenty left. But it didn't seem fair to knit a swatch for one skein and not the other three. So no swatches this time. I apologize. I hope you understand. But you do get to see 4 skeins, which I think is the most skeins of yarn that I've dyed in a single video before. So it's a fair trade-off. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting, and I would love to see all of y'all try over-dyeing some brown yarn and see what you get when you do that. See how it affects the final color that you end up with, and if it gets you the darker shade that you're wanting without using as much dye. If you did find the video interesting or entertaining, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you are more than welcome to give it a thumbs down. That is entirely your call. But I do hope that you had fun, and regardless, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on our next adventure. Bye, everybody. Say bye, Chad.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.